LinkedIn, we are on here. Let's go.
He challenged me. He said, you should meet 2 or 3 people every day.
We're talking about how to level up on LinkedIn and engagement, leading the go-giver, the idea that being open to opportunity.
We all deal with challenges, but how do you overcome that?
Master Connector with Steve Spiro and Cameron Toth is live on air.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. And we are excited, really excited to connect with you. Making your story connect is such an important thing. We've talked about it, and we're going to continue talking about it for a long time because there is no truer and more authentic way to connect with people than your story, whether it's in the cafe line or it's over the internet. It's your story, who you are, what makes you you, that's going to drive the know, like, and trust factor. Steve, you ready to get into this with me here?
I am, sir. What's going on, friends? Steve Spiro, the Master Connector, coming at you live and direct. So yeah, we all have a story to tell. We do. But the question that you need to ask yourself is, does your story truly connect? That is the true question, right? Do you connect when you're networking and telling your story, or do you have maybe a thought about connecting through writing a book or writing a blog, right? Do you have a story to tell but not sure how to get it out? That's another challenge that people speak about, right? They have this amazing story, and we talk about obstacles, and big pillar of our show is having the grit to overcome obstacles and challenges, right? And that mess you're in, there's a message there, right? That your test is your testimony is another one I've heard, right? So you have a story. But today we're going to cover all that. We're going to cover that. We're going to get deep in. You're going to actually see us talking about and actually giving you a little kind of maybe a demonstration of what a story that connects could be like through to us telling our story. And you all know some of mine, but maybe I'm going to get a little bit nitty gritty with you so you can really understand. I heard recently from a good friend, Mr. Victor Felix, that every good story needs the dream, the struggle, and the victory. And so we're going to kind of talk a little bit about that. There also, he said, needs to be a villain. There needs to be somebody that kind of like, maybe the villain is a real person. Maybe the villain is, certain obstacles, challenges, as you'll hear from me, bullied and learning disabled. Those things are villains, if you will, right? But of course, you need to connect authentically by sharing those personal struggles and challenges. And we're going to talk about that, not just kind of glossing over. And Cameron pointed out to me the other day that sometimes I tend to gloss over that a little bit. So get into that a little bit so you can really connect, because what happens when you do that is it breaks barriers down, and it brings those walls down. Like Ronald Reagan said, Gorbachev, tear down that wall, right? And it brings the walls down. And so today we're going to dive into this topic. So if you're ready for us to dive in, I'd like you to type in right now, #let's go, because we're going to get into it right now. And I'll turn it over to my man, who's been incredible partner, mentor, friend. We had a great dinner the other day, planning some big stuff coming. So stay tuned. Big things coming. Cameron, I really appreciate you, sir. So I'll just turn it back over to you. Let's go.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, get in the comments there. Yolanda is always first in it. Thank you, Yolanda. Amazing time in Frisco where she's tuning in from. Don't be a LinkedIn lurker. Get in there. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Network in the comments. And we want you to practice telling your story. And whether that's getting into the comments here with us today or going into your about section. Yes, I said your about section on LinkedIn. Maybe you just jumped into the new social network Threads and you got to type something into that profile. Can you type in something in there that is along the lines of telling a little bit more about your story, giving some little bit of vulnerable sort of insight into you, right? Steve talked about it, right? If he gives this spiel, he's a martial arts black belt, a master network. He moved from being a shy introverted kid to the master connector he is today. Steve, tell us a little bit more about that story. What does authenticity have to do with connecting for business? How do you make your story connect? Give us an example of that.
Yeah, well, so like I alluded to, right? And you just said it, Cameron, right? When I say I was shy and introverted, what does that mean? And what's the origin of that? Well, listen, and I'm going to be a little bit transparent with you. I'm going to be a little vulnerable with you guys, which I think is the key to connecting, by the way. And my parents got divorced early on. I was, growing up, I was picked on a lot. I remember there was a particular one of the bullies in my life was a guy named Stuart. I'm not going to give you his last name somehow in case he's listening, but his family they were the supers to an apartment building. Obviously, growing up in the Bronx, we didn't, there was no houses in our neighborhood. It was apartment buildings. And I remember one time, they were in the basement area, and he had this really mean German Shepherd that was as big. It looked like a wolf. And I remember I was going to visit Stuart, and I went down into the lower area, and all of a sudden I see the dog. He's not behind a gate or anything like he normally is. And I start turning around and running for the hills, and this dog takes a big chunk out of my rear end. And it was crazy. But the crazy part of the story is for a little while, it gave me some grace. Because Stuart was not all over me, because I guess he was afraid I was going to sue his family. I don't know. So he wasn't bullying me for a little while, but that just lasted for a short time. But those are just some things. I mean, my dad was not around a lot. He worked all the time. Obviously, they were divorced. I think my dad played ball with me one time. We played catch once. He didn't teach me how to talk to girls and forget about the birds and the bees, just how to have a conversation, and the ability to, maybe he didn't show me how to fight. So I was honestly, it was very awkward. My nickname growing up was Spaz. So that's kind of how I grew up. I mean, it took a long time before I had the courage to ask a girl out. And of course, when I finally had the courage, there was some liquid in me, if you know what I mean, at that point in my life. And the girl said no. And so that was who I was for years. And then, of course, having the learning disability. And then when the teacher would ask me to read in front of the class, like they did it sometimes in school, and I would stutter, and it was this was horrible. And so all this rejection, I remember one time when my mom she was trying to reinvent herself, and she was going back to college to kind of, reinvent herself in terms of a career and make better money, because the family was hurting. And she locked herself in her bedroom. And, I didn't have my mom was like, my go-to, but all of a sudden she wasn't. So I felt like even rejected there. So there was all this rejection and hurt, and I kind of closed myself in. I wanted being the guy in my room at my house, just like not speaking to anybody. I didn't come out to say hello to my family. I just locked myself in. And that was the metaphor to who I was. I had one close friend, a real friend who didn't bully me, a guy named Michael, and he moves to another neighborhood. And I get on my bike one time, and I ride to him to see him. And it's like he didn't want to even, to have anything to do with me. And so that was the end of that. So there I was, no friends, bullied, introverted, and then today, 25,000 LinkedIn connections and 18,000 in my phone. And that's the craziness. So the point and why I wrote the book and why I love to tell my story and be the light is because I want people to understand that if I could do this, you can too. I want people that whatever challenges, we're going to hear from our great friend, Alan Greenwald, whatever challenges and struggles you're going through, it doesn't matter. You can break through that. It just takes grit, persistence, and the ability to be comfortable enough in your skin to be able to tell people some of those challenges, vulnerabilities, and you then can now really break walls down. And now people will start telling you. I've had Zoom calls and coffee meetings with people, and they're like, I'm telling you things I don't tell anybody, and I'm telling you. And that's because when you're vulnerable, you break those barriers and people just start opening up. And as I said to you the other day, I was on a podcast the other day, and I said, it's the two kids get to play in the sandbox when you break those barriers down. So anyway, that's a little bit of the backstory obviously, lots happened since then. Double black belt. I could get into why I went to become a black belt, but it's just crazy, the journey. And so
Well, I think one of the amazing things that's powerful about your story is that, you saw something in yourself that you wanted to change, and you started on a journey to change, and you changed a lot, right? I mean, the fact that you're able to, and when I remember going to one of the first things that you were speaking at, and I was watching you speak, and you were talking about, at that time, the three-legged stool of
networking,
of networking, and you were talking about talking to somebody, on the line, and if anyone's paying attention to posts on LinkedIn, and you put that post up, and I talked about, I went to a networking event last night, and it wasn't easy for me to do it. And I think, it's very easy to look at people and think, oh, it just must come so easy for them. They just must be able to wake up and just do that. And, it takes a lot of work. And you talk about the work that it's taken to get you where you are. But I remember you speaking about, talking to people on a line, and, if everybody's like I think your analogy or a metaphor for it.
They're like a dog. They're like, people are like a dog, and it's not like, I'm not calling them dogs, but it's like when you go pet a dog, you get 3 reactions, right? Either A, the dog is like licking your hand and happy and lick, their tails wagging, or the dog is just sort of like a cat. They just don't care. They walk away, or the dog is going to growl at you and trying to bite your butt like Stuart's dog did. And that's what people are like, right? And it's not you, it's not me, it's that. And you got to break through the barrier of stranger danger.
But I remember you talking about that, and I remember it was just uncomfortable for me to hear it. It was uncomfortable for me to imagine myself talking to a stranger. It's just not my natural mode. Like, I'm comfortable once I know somebody. I'm comfortable with you. I'm comfortable with our community here, right? We're in the mix there. You're in my house, so to speak, and I feel comfortable talking to people in my house. Thank you for being here, by the way. And I'm so happy that Camille from Millwood, New York is tuning in, and Bonnie from Toronto, Ontario is tuning in. We love you here. And of course, Yolanda from Frisco, Texas. This is our family. This is our community. I'm in my zone, right? But going to that networking event, it took me a while. I was nervous. I was like, all right, am I going to go? I had to I don't drink, but I had to go eat a slice of pizza and have the guilty pleasure. And then I felt comfortable enough to go, and I was late. But, it's one of those things that, we do it, and we know that we need to do it because we want to push the needle forward. And that's why you're here. That's why you're watching, right? If you're watching us right now, you want to push the needle forward. And so there's things that you're going to do that get you out of your comfort zone. And speaking of getting out of your comfort zone, we got Alan Greenwald here. Alan!
Hello, gentlemen. Nice to be
I'll quickly introduce Alan for you, because this is a guy that wears his heart on his sleeve, 20 years, first responder. He's going to tell you a little bit about his story, because he's going to try to get his story out here and connect with you. And so we're so excited for Alan to tell his story. But he is the publisher of the Neighborhood Buzz, and it's this amazing magazine that is local to Westchester, which is my home, my neck of the woods, and the river towns here, which are so amazingly beautiful. He does an amazing job publishing things. So we're so excited to have you on the show, Alan. So we're going to give you the opportunity to tell your story and connect.
Before he does, I just want to say, Alan, it's a pleasure to be on with you here, and I know you've been a loyal follower, and I won't say fan, because we're friends, so that's like a contradiction, but you've been a great supporter, that's probably a better word, of the show. And as you know, Alan, I'm just saying this for the rest of the community. We did a fundraiser. We went to a golf outing, and there was a fundraiser, and I put out the Master Connector experience, and you won that, whatever you want to call it. You bid for it, and you won it. And part of that was to have you on here. But you know what? If it couldn't, in my opinion, couldn't have been anyone better, a close friend and loyal follower to have on the show here. So we're excited, and we know we want to hear a little bit of your story, Alan. Tell us, if you can, and we're going to go full screen on you and let you kind of share from your heart, because I know you have an incredible story. So Alan, take it away, sir.
I guess I want to thank you guys for being a guest on your show. And my story starts, I guess, back in September 11th, 2001, like a lot of people, where, those days affected, the events of that day really affected me in regards to trying to help people. We were attacked, and I really felt like I wanted to get back. That's when I started as an EMT, as a first responder. I felt that my ambulance corps needed people to kind of join and to take them into the 21st century. So I joined, I worked my way up the ladder, became a second lieutenant, first lieutenant, captain, EMT during the time. I've been on the Corps for about 22 years now. And it's something that I love, paying it forward, and something that I really enjoy. And during that time, as a member of ASVAC, I started to do more with my family. My wife and I and the kids would do days at a battered women's shelter as a picnic, serving food for the women that were there, hiding from their abusive boyfriends or husbands. We would do midnight runs into the city to deliver clothes to the homeless. And each time it kind of gave me a kind of a vibe that, very, really good feeling. And I said that this is something that I love to experience because there's too much negativity in the world. And I was just seeing it and feeling it. And a few years back, I decided that I wanted to get back even more, but I didn't know what else I could do. And I noticed that there were a lot of publications that were out there, but they were kind of not really talking about the things that were important to me. That would be the history, the culture, the reasons people want to help or be helped, or positive things. And it spurred in myself the idea to start this magazine, The Neighborhood Buzz. I had a publishing background. I left my family business and just started the Neighborhood Buzz Rivertowns. But meanwhile, back in 2013, my life was thrown into turmoil when my wife died from cancer. She was a very young, vibrant woman, but was stricken with this terrible disease and taken from us way too early. And I never knew what I was going to do. I was in a real hardship time in my life, and said, I got to pull through it for my family and learn these things that she used to do and take it upon myself. And I was able to persevere and get over this. And the same challenges with creating this magazine was like, what am I going to do? How am I going to do it? But my resolve was strong, and my story is strong. And I like to tell the stories and have other people tell their stories about what's going on in this community. And then by joining the Master Network community also helped, because I was able to relate my story and to others like Steve and Cameron. And they were very helpful in saying, hey, you should connect with this person or that person. And everybody has a story. The hard thing is really getting it out. What is the value of your story? And your story is just the human connection. You don't have to be better. You don't have to be Superman. You just have to be human. And I think people notice that. And when you're human and when you put that out there, that's what connects with people. And that's what I'm really trying to do with the Neighborhood Buzz. Bring a positive focus to the river towns, that there's so much to offer, so much history, so many arts, culture. It's a great place to live. That's why I live here. And I think that most communities could say the same thing about themselves. And they need to really project that positive image, which is what I've been trying to do over the last few years. So my story is not unique to myself. I'm sure there's other people that have suffered these things. Steve, you've been able to overcome a lot of challenges, and life is full of challenges. And the thing is, you need to overcome your own fears, and don't be your villain. Don't be the person that gets in your way, because if you have a dream, that is the thing that is most important. Living your dream is the best, and it'll take care of everything else, and the monetary thing comes along with it.
I love that. One of the things that, the imposter syndrome, if you will, I think a lot of that, when people start telling their story, I think they start getting held back by things like, well, I don't want to come off sounding weak. I don't want to come off sounding like I don't know what I'm talking about. And, I think there's definitely a point to be made when you talk about how you speak about yourself, right? And you said it, Alan, like, don't be the villain. I think, you could also make a point of, not being the victim. Right. Of your story. Right. Because, I think, you've went through some hard stuff. We've talked offline. I think you and Steve have as well, about some of the struggles you had with your wife. And I think, for somebody that's gone through something like that, it's very easy to fall into, I'm the victim of this, right? And life is happening to me versus I have an active role, and I'm I'm taking this and moving on, and this is how I'm using my struggle to lighten my path, right? And I think we've all probably been on the phone or on a Zoom connection or in person with somebody that, whether it's the weather they're complaining about or something that's happened to them in their life, it's not a positive. It's not, they're being almost a villain with your time because they don't have anything positive to sort of to give you. And I think, we're very much of the go-giver thing. We want to fill people's cup. We want to make sure people are getting something from us. And, that could be hopefully some inspiration, maybe some advice. Sometimes people, dig advice, but hopefully a lot of times it's this personal story. And if you can learn anything from me, it's the fact that you can go through something like this and you can come out the other side and be a stronger individual and still have something to contribute. And so, Alan, before we sort of part ways here and let you go, what I'd really like you to talk about is you're the publisher of this amazing magazine, and why do you feel empowered, or what's your mission there? Why do you get up and go with this thing?
Well, I think the main reason is I like to give back to the community. And I found that there was a lack of publications that talked less about what's the best or the top 10 of this, but to tell the story. I mean, what was the story of the founding of Dobbs Ferry? What was the history? How did it come to existence? The same with any of the Rivertown communities, Irvington. How did it get its, name? Why was Washington Irving so important to the village? This, Sleepy Hollow Lighthouse, the Mario Cuomo Bridge, the things that are going on in the community. We're doing a great story about the Tiffany family that was also in Irvington that donated a lot of things. These are positive type of things. We don't need to be so negative all the time. And we don't all need to be in a race to see who's the best dry cleaner or the best restaurant, because a lot of that is so subjective. These are stories that you can read and say, yeah, I didn't know that about this. And here, this is something that's really interesting in the community. That's, to me, resonates more than a lot of things in regards to traffic issues or, one school rivalry or something that is a negative. There's so much negativity in the world, and it's easy to go down that route.
What I love, because I pick up the magazine and I'm reading and I'm amazed by it, Alan, just amazed by it, because it's something that, there's a lot of commercial stuff out there. I was actually turned off wildly. I have an organization that I have now ceased to be a member of, and their publication, I just, the years were going by and I was like noticing, they're just bought and paid for by one particular corporation. And rather than serve the industry that I'm a part of and that I love,
serve the reader.
I'm part of this organization, part member of this thing. They're just, they've just forgotten all that, and they serve this one particular organization, and they forgot about the education, and they forgot about, the real members. And then they serve, there's lip service, they're putting members on the cover of the magazine, but the actual content of the matter, it's vapid. It's just non-existent. It's just not there. And
I hit it on the head, Cameron, that it's all about content. Yeah. It's all about being interesting and, making your story kind of, really, go out there and get to people's hearts.
Well, I encourage people to check out the Neighborhood Buzz, Rivertown.
Thank you. Neighborhood Buzz, nbuzz.net if you want to see it. And thank you so much for being your time, being on the show. I love it. And good luck, guys. I think you do amazing.
Thank you, Alan. That's amazing. And you got to check it out because it's a great magazine. It tells some history. Every community deserves to have something like this. Even the local papers don't do what you do in terms of telling the local stories. We appreciate you, Alan.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate being on your show. Great guy.
So, whether it's your personal journey or something that you have a passion for, I think, and even I'll pick on Alan just a moment, because I think, even with that, it's like, how do you make what you do, and your personal story, why do you pull that over? And we could talk about, a little bit more of his personal family life, community life. Why does that touch him? That sort of thing, and get into that. Those are the things that are really important. But the last thing you want to do, if I'm on a phone call with you and I'm saying, what are you about? what do you serve? What's your greatest purpose in life? Well, my company does XYZ to fulfill that. It's just not the way you want to go. You want to tell your story, share the things that bring some commonality. We're in master networks, and that first thing is B for building on common interests. So setting that up and speaking about that is such a big deal. Alan publishes this magazine. You've recently published a book, Steve.
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll throw that on the screen here. Just give people that. You can hold that book up for just another second.
There you go.
You can order yours today. But the gall, Steve. I mean, the absolute cojones on you. What do you think you have to contribute? Why the hell would you're not some billionaire rocking on jet planes and riding around Lamborghinis. What gives you the right to publish a book? And of course, I'm being funny, everybody, but I think we all sort of have these thoughts in our head. And, as I was sort of talking myself through it last night, and, you're thinking about how to encourage and inspire people. Listen, folks, we don't get anything from being shy. If you want to contribute, you need to step up and your voice needs to be heard. You need to be the light. And so, Steve, again, going back to this question, right? And what are we going to tell people to put in the comments here? Listen, how? Why don't we do it that way? All right.
There you go. All right.
How?
Right? Okay. Yeah. Well, listen, to answer your question, right? I believe everybody wants to leave a mark on this planet, right? Everybody wants to be significant and make a difference. And I know I do. And, we never had kids. So I have some incredible people in my life that I've been blessed to be mentored by. I've been mentored and I've been able to mentor people. And there's I believe mentorship is your legacy, but a book could be also a legacy, right? It could be a way that it could live beyond you, right? We see plenty of people in history that have written books and, hundreds, 200 years later, there's still, thousands that in some cases, the book is still around and people are influenced by it. But I just want to read one little passage from here. I'm not going to read it, but I'll read the title is of this particular section. The book is a bunch of parables and stories and little vignettes, great bathroom reading. You got to get the book. I think it's not the how to be a master connector, but the mindset, the way, the path, how you want to feel to be that master connector. And so this particular chapter or section is it's time to get light and lose the baggage. And we all have stuff. We all have baggage, right? Now, I was recently traveling to Charlotte. If you lose your baggage, that sucks. Okay. So, but in this case, in your journey in life, you want to lose the baggage. And it's so much lighter. I remember I mentioned in the story, not in that section, but there was this old thing that I believe it was around the time, right around 2,000-3,000 years ago, the Romans, if you were caught stealing or you murdered somebody or they accused you of murdering somebody, they took that person's dead body and it would get attached to your back and you'd have to walk around with it. And imagine that's just, it's horrible, the smell, but their decaying body would decay your skin too. It was crazy. And so a lot of times we have this baggage, which I had for years and years. I felt guilty and, just inadequate and not enough. And I carried that with me for so long. And so get rid of that baggage. Let it go. It's always going to be there, but just let it go. Right. Like, I won't start singing from the Frozen movie. Right. But just let it go. And you'll be amazed. And so that's just one little taste. Again, there's a bunch of stuff in here, losses or lessons, winning or learning. So many cool things that you can learn in the book. Again, things that probably aren't things that, perhaps some things you've heard already, maybe just reemphasize it. But it's been a fun journey. So go pick up the book. It's available on Amazon. It's available on Barnes & Noble. If you just Google the Tao of a Master Connector, or maybe Cameron will put in the link in the show. But we don't want this about just the book. Again, this is about you being able to tell your story. And so, Cameron, if you could come back in now, I'd love to talk to you because, so how does grit, because I know you've got an incredible story. How does grit help make you connect better with the audience? Because you've got some stuff that you've dealt with over the course of your life.
Yeah. Whether it's talking to a potential employee, a potential client, or talking to a high school student, because if you know me for 5 minutes, right, I've talked about my story of not graduating from high school, then getting serious as I had a child at 19 years of age and said, all right, I gotta do better, because I have to be there in a way that makes sense for this young human that I've brought into the world through my actions. And so I went after the GED and went after the college education. And then because I was approaching it all wrong, I was trying to do the right thing, trying to build, but running into walls. And so I dropped out of college, right? Going to school in the city, in New York City. And so whether it's, any of these different people that I'm connecting with, the stories that I tell, they talk about my challenges, the things that I had a really hard time with, right? So whether it's dealing with the education thing, and a lot of times when I'm in front of a high school student, they see a white guy in a suit. The assumption is this guy, of course he graduated from college. Of course he's got the degrees on the wall. Of course he's done. And so, you can almost see, the chin drop, right, when somebody understands that, oh, wow, this guy's led a different life than I expected that he was going to lead. So that's a big deal. The trials and tribulations, whether it's talking about my history, and a lot of people will gloss over their history, right? I've been in business for 12 years now. And so when you talk to somebody, are you mentioning some of the details about who you are, how long you've been in your industry, not just how long you've been in your role, but how long have you been in your industry? Have you been through multiple industries? So you've seen some different things. And so when I tell my story, and I've learned to tell it fairly quickly, and whether you're talking about elevator pitch or Zoom networking call, it's good to get a handle on that. But especially if I know my audience, I'm gearing that story to who they are. And so I want to make sure that I'm giving myself a little bit of street cred. And so I talk about some of the pieces of my life that I've gone through, and whether it's talking about, my wife's and our family's challenges with immigration, or dealing with having a child at 19 and dealing with family court, or dealing with the trials and tribulations of running a business and, dealing with tax challenges. I can, in just a matter of a few minutes, give somebody a little bit of taste by being vulnerable, by admitting that I've done some things that weren't correct, weren't 100% right, but show not only the fact that I'm human, that I've been there, done that, but also, hey, things are working out better. Again, I'm not traveling around in jet planes or Lamborghinis either, right?
Not yet.
Not yet, right? Not necessarily the goal either. I'll point that out, because that's not the things that I'm concerned most with. Right. But the idea that things have worked out pretty good, and I'm really, really grateful for the things that I have. And it's not a bad thing when you're telling your story to speak about all the things that you have immense gratitude for. And so, if you've jumped onto the new social media network Threads, as you're getting that start, if you've built up some social, kind of potency in some other places, right, that follows through. And I think life is like that, right? If you've built up some credibility here and built up some credibility there, that's a big deal. And you don't get that without putting yourself out there, without publishing the book, without getting on social media and putting that effort forward, without making those phone calls that you need to make to do the sales effort. You can't be shy in this life.
And Cameron, I wanted you to speak a little bit, because we were also going to talk about Go Giver. You also are huge on giving back, right? So you've had the grit, you struggled, but then now you want to pay that forward. Talk a little bit about your heart and how you pay that forward, and you're that Go Giver.
Yeah, man, the last 26 years always sort of wild just to think about that, because I'm 45 years old. And so at this point, it's, more than half my lifetime. I've been a part of a nonprofit organization that provides college and career prep and assistance to high school students, and that's my heart. And anybody again that's heard that story about me having my challenges, trying to get through school, having a child at a young age, you understand my motivation around it. And so if I'm able to pull people in to support that cause, one of the reasons I'm able to do that, and one of the reasons I'm able to have some sort of authority, because I certainly don't have the college degrees. There's no PhD. There's not even a BA after my name. Not that people put that, but that's where my authority and my credibility comes from, because I have been committed and passionate, and I got a reason to be there.
And listen, you know, a lot of us could have reasons and challenges and want to give back, but it means having a heart, you know, to want to give back, and you have that heart. You know, one of the things I admire about you is you're always looking to serve and give, and you know, even if it's the suggestions you make for me, and it's just there's always something I'm seeing you. I see the way you coach and mentor your employees at you know, Toth Event Staffing. And by the way, thank you for Toth Event Staffing for being a sponsor of the show.
Absolutely. Boom. All right.
There it is. But even, you know, and you shared me some of the testimonies that your customers have given you, because you obviously care.
And listen, last night, and you know, this is one of those things, right? Last night, I'm at this BCW Business Council of Westchester event that I was, you know, sort of hemming and hawing. You know, it's been on the calendar for a while. It wasn't a surprise. And as the day was going by, I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to go to this thing. You know, you just get involved in your day, and networking events aren't the most joyful thing for me. When I'm thinking about Steve telling his story about making conversation with that person he doesn't know in the line, I'm having that same uncomfortable hearing that story as I'm walking into an event and I'm looking around the room. And luckily I've been putting this effort forward, and I go to these events and there are some people that I know, and along those lines, the social media thing can help with that as well. And I find that's helpful because sometimes that starts some conversations. But Darren Gordon, a fellow Master Networks member, happened to be in the crowd. So as I'm walking around, I bump into Darren Gordon. He says hello. I'm like, hey, Darren. And he gives this amazing, beautiful testimony because he's hired some of my staff through me, right? There was two ladies that he was talking to, and he gave this beautiful testimonial about how amazing the services was and everything. And so that took me from being, you know, this random event staffing guy, which, you know, as I'm going around and networking events, when they see event staffing, you know, what are the desirable, you know, people, you know, what are the desirable companies that you want to do business with? Maybe, you know, the brand names of the world. If you work for MasterCard, IBM, you know, some of my clients on the staffing side that do a lot of money business and everything, you see somebody like that, hey, how can I, you know, get to know you? See event staffing guy not high up on the priority list. The two ladies in front of him immediately wanted to know me, immediately wanted my card. It was a nice thing. So those relationships matter, and they're very helpful.
Yeah, no, for sure. Relationships definitely matter. So yeah, this is great. So listen, you know, hopefully you got some good value out of the show here. There you go. Thanks, Yolanda. Yeah, it's an art, but it's a skill. And like you said, network's an art, but it's something that people can learn. And you know what? Honestly, if I could do it, and I'm not minimizing what you're saying, Cameron, but at least at a networking event, you're there to meet people. When you're at the supermarket or on the line at Barnes and Noble, at Barnes and Noble, Starbucks or whatever, you're not there necessarily to meet strangers. Maybe I am, but you might not be. So it's definitely, so if you could do that, you could do anything. It's crazy, but I admire you for pushing through it. I remember that the exact golf outing that we're talking about with Alan. I was there, and of course, you know, we did supposed to be 18 holes of golf, and I'm getting through the 9th hole, and I'm like, and I had a procedure a few weeks before that, and I was not as, you know, working out, so I had some, it wasn't my full stamina, and I said, you know, starting to get a little bit tired, and you know, one of the guys, Chris Dutra, who was one of great supporters of the show, a good friend of mine, Chris turns to me and we're in the golf cart together. He's like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Yeah, maybe I take a rest. Maybe I'll just stop at 9." I went to my car and I'm like, "Man, I got to do the rest of the night here, because there was another 4 or 5 hours. There was after the golfing was done, there was cocktails and then dinner, and I'm like, and awards, and I'm like, oh man, because again, it's so not part of my nature. When you're around people and you're an introvert by nature, people drain you. Not that people, but being around people drains you, right? And so, but listen.
And it can be, and talking to people, it doesn't seem like it's the biggest thing. But if you're listening to this show, I'm giving you permission to feel tired at the end of the day of talking to people, because some of the most exhausting days that I can think about are days where I was sitting for the most part and I was speaking to people. Yeah. And you don't realize how much mental energy it takes to both speak, listen, process, and work.
Try to add value if you can.
Yeah, it is tough work. And you can feel drained after doing, I'm sure, right, one podcast interview, Steve, right?
When I go to bed at night, I earn my pillow. I am ready for bed. I am exhausted, but it's a good exhausted. It's like you laid it all on the playing field. It's great. I love it. Yeah.
All right, we got to wrap this up.
Wrap it up.
Thank you. Great show as always. So please connect with Alan. He's in the comments there. I'm going to drop his link to his LinkedIn profile. So we do want you to network and connect with him.
Make sure you're connecting with each other.
Yeah,
make sure that you're sharing out the show. If you're watching it on the replay, type in #replay. Definitely the more interaction, the more that the algorithms work for the show. And again, it's not about us and the show. It's about, we want to be the light. We want to inspire. We want to make a difference on this planet, on this big blue marble, right? This big ball of mud. And we're just not here, I don't believe, just to exist. We're here to really make a difference, right? To touch people's lives. And I say I mean all of you. I think we should all, that should be our purpose, is really just to, we talk about it, right? Your candle, when you light somebody else's candle, yours doesn't diminish, right? And so just let's be that light. So love you guys. There we go. Next week.
Same bad time, same bad channel. Next week, Wednesday, July 19th, the Sales Rebellion with Dale Dupree. The link is in the comments now, so jump in there, register for the show. We're excited to see you. Make sure you're coming in. You got some comments. We're going to be talking about sales, always a huge topic for LinkedIn. We're always in that mode. I know for me right now, my biggest challenge is getting a half an hour to an hour in daily on contacting people on the sales side. I have such a negative connotation with it, and it's getting past that and sort of associating sales with relationships rather than sales, and building those and making the dreams happen, not only for myself, but for the people that I work with and all of the staff that I employ, because the more opportunities we have for them, the better it serves me, the better it serves our clients. And so we get to make things happen. So tune in for that next week. And then in addition, like we always do, my folks, we're going to count down to crush it. So count down with me, get in the comments, type it out. Yolanda, show them how to do it. All right, Steve, you ready?
Ready. Let's go.
5,
4, 3, 2, 1. Crush it!
Out there and have an amazing week. We hope that you are crushing it every day. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being a part of this amazing community. We'll see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel.